What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Omnic Lab. We're a podcast that helps you focus on the game of Overwatch, but more specifically in the strategies and ideals of your Overwatch gameplay. We help you learn, just like a lab, through trial and error and the scientific method that's darn handy and helps us even get a little crazy and have experiments that blow up in our faces. But we'll help you broom some strategies up in the lab. We stir some tips and hopefully equip you, the listener, with some instruments that you need to gain the strategic edge while learning ourselves. I'm your main host, Rob May, and joining me on episode number 32 is Andres Gomez. What is up, Andres?
What's up, dude? I've been super good. I am done with all my seasonal sickness. I'm done with the cold and stuff. I am back full force. It feels really good this week. I'm intending to play a ton of Overwatch this week, try to push my ranking. More on that later. But yeah, it's a good day.
Yeah, so Andres, why don't you let us know what you're planning to do today? So I'll do the little introductory portion and then let you kind of spin a little bit of a teaser, and then we'll get into kind of our competitive mode update.
Sounds good.
We're on the ladder. So today, guys, we want to, specifically Andres and I were talking, and he wanted to pitch to you guys a new way to come at the game of Overwatch from a different angle than we normally hit, with hard data and or ideas regarding the meta. We want to talk about the mental game of Overwatch, more specifically identifying and exploiting your advantage. So this is basically something like playing in the past or playing in the present or playing in the future is kind of like the main thrust, but with some side things that are more questions that you should be asking, like, what is your mental game maturity level? What can you develop in your ability to predict, or how can you develop your ability to predict in the game? And how do the pros predict engagements and ultimate status? So those are the type of things we want to address today. Andres, why don't you give us a teaser real quick?
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Overwatch. Since it pretty much came out on the open beta, I was like right there. Even in closed beta, I was right there playing it. So I've been playing it for a while, and it's taken me a long time to develop this mentality for the game. And I think that even after playing it all this much, I can even keep improving even more. And the more and more I play this game, it's kind of like the more it becomes a new game, if that makes any sense. Like, I'm starting to realize the real depth of this game, and it's just so huge. And right now, even the pro level players are still discovering the game. And maybe like 2-3 years from now, this will be a completely different game. And when you look back and see some of the pro teams right now, you'll be like, man, these guys are not that good. And I think that some other content creators and some other people have touched on this. But basically, we wanted to share today some of the stages that you might go through in Overwatch and some of the things that you can do yourself mentally to improve at the game a lot more and get all the strategy down. And that's what we wanted to discuss. As much as I've been playing today duo and 6Qs, I've noticed that even in the 6Qs, there's a lot of fundamentals and mistakes that people make all the time that are not necessarily mechanical, but more at a like strategic mental level.
Yeah, I definitely have. We'll just transition this right into our competitive mode update since you went ahead and did that for us very smoothly, I might add. So, I've been playing with a lot of mixed groups, but mostly I've been playing with my man Aussie Boy Boom Bat as a primary guy. Like, Monday schedules just work really well for both of us to queue up together. Occasionally, he'll pull in a third.
Yeah, you guys are on the same time schedule, right? Or around the same at least.
Yeah, within 2 to 3 hours, so it's a lot closer than
better than 13 hours.
17 to 15
yeah.
with you U.S. folks now. So, anyways, it's been working pretty well. Like I had raved last week, but this weekend everything changed. So for those of you that are in Discord, this is just like a very small smidgen of my pent up rage, but like I couldn't get anything done. I went 0-7 with Ana, who is predominantly one of my stronger characters, and I went 0-3 with Mercy, another one of my strongest characters. And over the course of the last 20 games. I've only won 2.
Jeez, dude, it's been rough.
So I went from 1801 to 2046, and then won 1-1. So a set of 3 games with Boom. Went up to 2077, which is crazy to think about if you go, loss, draw, win. And then sat down the next 3 sittings, and I didn't win a game for 2 days. So
Man, that's a rough ladder experience right there. And I've been there too. I started the week really good, and then the end of the week it started getting little worse. I fell down almost to 2,900, up from 3,100, and then I was like, okay, Andres, get your stuff together. I was supposed to get myself back up to 3,000, but I feel like ladder got a little harder this week for some reason.
yeah, I can definitely echo that. There's a lot of people in every elo, plat, silver, even some of our bronze players reporting games that like this is just not happening with me this week. And I think it's honestly the big adjustment to the new style of play with those 3 tanks, or with the soldier dominating meta that's shown up even at the top level. And I feel like it's more oppressive the further you get through top level gold, mid level plat, and then once you get to diamond, it's like every game 3 tanks, every game soldier on a combo, like
3 tank meta. It definitely is very predominant right now, and it's a comp that works, right? Like right now, all of the tanks are in a spot where they're pretty decent, and you can actually get kills with the tanks. Here's the thing, though. I feel like some of the people that play triple tank don't play it correctly, and then I also feel that some of the people that play against triple tank sometimes don't play against it correctly either, making it seem like triple tank is super overpowered right now. But I don't think it's super overpowered. It just happens to be a viable comp right now. You can run 3 tanks and actually do okay, especially if you play it as the ball of death that as you should be playing it with, where you have a huge front line that can pretty much contest any objective because you got 3 fatties just standing there, and then maybe you have like a Zen and Anna like way in the back, like nowhere to be found, right? And especially if the other team is playing 3 tanks as well, like they will more than likely have no flanker aside from maybe like a diva or something. As long as Roadhog is keeping an eye on their healers, like he'll keep the diva off, no problem. So what ends up happening is you have these super beefy front lines with supports that can stay really far away and no real flanker that can like put pressure on Anna or the Zen. So I don't know. It's like this really weird stall meta where like whoever can get a pick on the supports can get a win. But without rambling too much, I feel like the higher up you get, the more diverse this starts getting, and you start getting like the double DPS and the more standard comps, and triple tank starts being so effective sometimes. It's just that it's a comp that is easy to like do bad at, right? Like because you have so much health, it's not easy to be out of position and die because you can more than likely survive it. Yeah.
Forgiving.
It's very forgiving. That is the word that I was looking for. It's a forgiving comp. Exactly. It's not like playing Genji or Tracer where you have to be very aware and you're really squishy. So it's very mechanically intensive on you to stay alive and harass. While with these, Roadhog, for example, you can kind of just bump around, and as long as you land a hook here and there, you're doing okay.
All right, so that's our very short segment this week about the triple tank meta, because we want to talk about something that supersedes that, which is your brain. So we'll get there. So let's take a quick second to thank our new Patreon patrons this week. We have a lot of last name G's this week. So we got some super sweet original OGs. We have Mick G. We have Ricardo G, who happens to be a brand new platinum level sponsor of the show. But we will get back with you. We want to get your info so we can start pimping out your stuff, man, on the show. And as soon as your payment clears. So major hype train. Thanks, Ricardo, for your huge support. And Anthony P, along with Justin and Chad G, with our new patrons. You guys are awesome. If you guys want to go check out what Patreon is about, what does Patreon do for the show, you can go check that out over at patreon.com/OmnicLab. And it basically is kind of just a tipping service and a each show support for us to help us out and get us some better equipment, help us make the equipment better, help us go day to day with the show, and help us get those loot boxes at the very base level, right?
That's right.
It really helps us out a lot with production and keeps us motivated to keep producing top level, top tier content at the best of our ability, and helps us stay more committed to the show week to week. So we also want to take this time to thank our already special sponsors. We at the platinum level I'm sorry, not the platinum. This is diamond level. These are folks that have donated a sizable portion of their income to help us out, and that is Mr. Rice Krispie, Chris C. Crispy Bacon. Lots of names for this guy. But thanks, Chris, to your support. And you can find him over at twitter.com/crispyrcer, or you can find him over at twitch.tv/rccrispy. Normal spelling, no spaces. And you can also find him over at our personal Discord if you have any more questions and need an admin to help you out. He's always there. And you can always check out our other patron, Mr. Magic himself. A Bit Like Magic is his Twitter handle, and you can go check him out there. And he pops in time to time in the Discord as well. Without further ado, let's get into the one section of news. So today on news, we only have one thing to talk about because we are mere hours away in this live show recording of our Christmas event dropping. So Andres and I are so pumped for new stuff. And it feels honestly like Halloween just finished for me. So I'm like still riding on the coattails of that cool event. And I'm excited to see what they're going to do with Christmas, what skins we're getting, all that stuff. But this has begun. So may the odds ever be in your stocking favor, and Merry Overwatchmas to you.
Yeah, I'm super excited for the event. I'm curious to see what they're going to do with the Brawl. I haven't really enjoyed the Brawl that they did in the past, the Lucy Ball and the Junkenstein's Revenge were actually really fun. And normally those are the things that I'll play once or twice at the most. But at least for Junkenstein's Revenge and Lucy Ball, I kept coming back to them just to play them for fun. And I felt compelled to get the achievements on Junkenstein's Revenge because I feel like it was challenging enough for me to be like, I want to get this. You know what I mean? It wasn't just like for funsies, but it was like, this is actually a cool challenge. I want to do it. So I'm looking forward to this one, and definitely looking forward to the skins. I'm still wearing my Halloween skins, which kind of makes me feel a little awkward sometimes. I'm like, this doesn't feel right wearing these skins. So I've been changing a few. Normally, I'm not a huge fan of Christmas skins in any game. I don't know. I'm super skeptical about those because they always look so out of place once you are not in season. You know what I mean? Like having having like freaking Santa Roadhog in like January is like, what? Come on, dude. Come on. So we'll see.
But firing Christmas lights at people all year long feels good.
We'll see how that goes. Although Blizzard has done such an amazing job with some of the skins that I wouldn't be surprised if I like one or two of them or more than that. But we'll see.
Especially that Thriller 76 and the Witch Mercy are pretty timeless.
Okay, I still use that. I love the Thriller 76. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into the new topic, shall we? So this is what we're going to refer to in the show as the mental game. So even though we're labeling it as such, I feel like this is a little bit too broad, and we actually want to go a lot more specific than the mental game at large, because we talk about tilt usually at the mental game. We talk about tilt, we talk about, feeling hot, right? Like you have that even in basketball and baseball. When you feel hot as a pitcher or as a shooter, you're just like everything you're hitting, So we're actually going from a completely different angle in most senses of the phrase. But I'm going to turn it over to Andres because he has the full deets for you, at least on how to introduce this.
Yeah, all right. So specifically what we want to talk about the mental game is different stages that you can kind of like put yourself in to discern the information that is coming at you and make a good decision, right? In Overwatch, there's a lot of situations and there's so much going on all the time in a 6v6 game that sometimes it's hard, especially for newer players, to discern when they actually have an advantage and they should use it, or when they're actually at a disadvantage and they should probably back off, or even where to position yourself. And I think that being able to answer all these questions requires a fair amount of experience, but it also requires you to think about the game in a certain way. So we were hoping today to go through some of the questions and some of the ways that you should be thinking about the game in order for you to be able to answer these questions actively throughout the entire game, eventually making you a better player. But basically, I want to summarize it into three categories at first, and touch a little bit on those and why I think thinking about the game in these ways is important. And basically, they are playing in the past, playing in the present, and playing in the future. And when I say this, I mean it specifically like while you're actively playing the game, you can think about the game in these three stages. Let's start about playing in the past. So, playing in the past is kind of reflecting on what is happening on the game, right? Like, a lot of players will go out there and try a flank and die. And then once that happens, you need to think to yourself, okay, why did that happen? What were the situations that led up to that flank failing on me? For example, was my team really far away when I did the flank so that the entire enemy team had the attention on me? Or maybe I took a wrong path and I was actually outflanked by their McCree, which was hiding in the corner, and I didn't pay attention to that guy. Or maybe when I did the flank, I actually focused the wrong person. I didn't go for the Mercy or the Zen. Instead, I started hitting the Roadhog from behind, grabbing his attention, and then he just kind of turned around and hooked me and killed me. So it's a lot of reflection stuff, and this can also happen at the end of the game. You know, what were the major points that drove you to lose the game, or that didn't allow you to push through that final little payload, right? Even small things in a fight, right? Do you use all of your cooldowns before you die? If you were Mei and you had Ice Block up, did you forget to do it? Or maybe you didn't have time. Maybe you should have used it a little sooner. If you're Genji, did you have your reflect when that shockwave came like at you from behind or something? This sort of thing. What do you think about this, Rob? Do you do this in the game?
I feel like playing in the past is the one factor that I do the most in Overwatch. I feel like I am the weakest when we get to sections of playing in the present and playing in the future. So playing in the past is one thing that I feel like I excel at in Overwatch. Probably at a diamond level, but because of that weakness in playing the present, playing the future, and mechanical ability, that's why I feel like I've dropped down to gold and I've stayed there. Does that make sense? That being said, I'm going to try to see if I can help with my cup of tea. Okay? So the one thing that I like to say here in particular is if you die at any point, that is the best time to recollect, to sit down and calm yourself and reanalyze situations because you're forced to. So if you are not doing that, it's not helping you. I mean, that's a very blunt way to put it, but it's also a way of saying it in a way that it's not negative, right? Because if you're not doing this, it doesn't mean that you're playing the game wrong, because you may have an instant idea of, oh, wow, I just screwed that up, right? But the fact of the matter is you did at some point in your death timer, you analyzed the game, even at a base level of, wow, I screwed up royally. Or, wow, that game, that ultimate push was just bonkers and they caught us completely off guard. So those are things that you can recollect in a very short amount of time, but you're still doing it. So if you can understand that you are recollecting at some point, you need to maybe organize that better. And so you actually have a plan of attack. So it's not just understanding what happened, but then planning for the future in spite of planning or playing in the past, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's correct. And I think that you're right about that. Like, it's important to, delve in the past to see what were your mistakes, how you could improve, especially even during the game. But here's the thing. Some players sometimes delve in the past a little too much, and it might be detrimental to their actual actions, right? Like, they might be still holding a grudge because they got killed by the Genji up in the tunnel, and they just keep thinking about that, keep going up the tunnel, and maybe keep getting hooked up there because the Genji has moved on, and he knows that he has to reposition himself while you are still kind of like stuck in that loop of chasing him and committing the same mistake over and over. Likewise, while you are playing the game, it's important that you keep yourself in the game as well. And it brings us to our next point, playing in the present. And this is where I think most players play their regular game, just like immediately in the present. And this has obviously advantages and some disadvantages. But when I say playing in the present is, what is your immediate like feedback of information, right? What is on your screen and what you're acting,
what is presented to you.
Yeah, and what are you acting upon that like specific moment in time, right? Who is grabbing your attention? Who are you prioritizing? Who is trying to engage you? Who's not paying attention to you? Making this sort of decision. And it's very important that while you're playing the game in the present, you have a clear and concise idea of who you should be focusing and who should you be targeting as your specific hero. Like if you're Reinhardt, you want to know that you want to be in the front line. If you're a soldier, you want to know that you want to be putting as much frontline pressure as you can while prioritizing targets like Ana and the healers if they're off position, or flankers on your supports if they're attacking from behind. And if there's nothing else to shoot at, you better be shooting down that shield down as fast as you can. So kind of like knowing what your role is. Same with Ana, like are you actively healing your Reinhardt who's getting attacked, or throwing your grenade on the enemy team when their shield is down so that your team can move up?
Yep.
All these
Offensive
little
versus defensive.
Yeah, all these little nuances that you have to make decisions in the present. Here's the thing about playing too much in the present, and is you can get very tunnel visioned. And if you're not thinking ahead, or if you're not analyzing on mistakes that you've made before, and when I say mistakes is, the enemy team is going to have like an ace up their sleeve, right? Like usually when they pick their composition, they're going to have like the guy that is blocking the choke point, or the Reinhardt is going to be protecting their main damage dealer so that they can like rain fire on you. This sort of thing. They're going to have like their own defenses. And as you discover the enemy team, you discover their weaknesses, you discover where they're trying to position. And if you're not like retrospectively thinking on this and only acting in the present, just kind of like rushing in and without really dissecting the enemy comp, this creates this sort of like tunnel vision that is very, very detrimental. And at this point, you're kind of like just a zombie in that sense, like almost like an AI just firing at the enemy team, because you're not taking into account this
very linear.
Yeah, very linear. You're not taking into account things that have happened in the past, and more importantly, you're not thinking about our next stage in thinking, which is playing in the future. Before we move on to playing in the future, do you want to say anything about playing in the present?
Yeah, a couple of things that actually overlap a lot with playing in the present. This is the one that you fluctuate the most with. This is the most flexible, the most prominent, but it's also one of the most important, because if you are playing too linearly in the present, you can't fluctuate between the others. So playing in the present is the one of the three that should be your home base, as it were. Because if you stay in the past too long, then you're not playing the game. If you're playing in the future for too long and planning, then you might as well get off the game and open a spreadsheet and a Word doc. Okay, so those are the two things you need to make sure that you're fluctuating between the present, because you cannot do the game itself without playing in a linear, somewhat fashion, right? You need to push the objective. You need to get kills. You need to survive, right? Those are linear objectives. But the other things that I wanted to touch on very briefly was that this calls back more with the past, but if you're playing in the present, that means you haven't died yet. So you also need to reassess somewhat playing in the past, playing in the present at the same time of, were we forced to disengage a fight? Because disengagements are not as much of a failure as a death on the team where you're man down, man advantage, etc. But you are forced to disengage based off of something the enemy team has done, or forced to do that based off of what your existing team has done. So you need to be very careful and very cognizant of what is happening. That makes your play on an X and Y axis now instead of an X linear axis. And then you have two more things, which is they go and coincide with each other, which is target priority and target priority on paper versus target priority of skill level. Because a lot of times if you're taking down a high priority target on paper, that may not actually help you in the long run, because at the lower elos where I play, silver, gold, even bronze and platinum, there are a lot of mechanical abilities that vary quite a bit. So if you are eliminating over and over and over and over very weak players, you may not actually be pushing the objective effectively. So it may actually be better to prioritize a tank that is really good than a soldier or a Pharah that is basically tickling you. Okay, so if you can do that, you have target priority of the right targets. So you have two different things that are always there. And I always get stuck here because I'm always prioritizing. In my mind, I'm thinking paper. What is the strategy here? This is triple tank. I need to be discording this person. They need to die first. When in reality, the other person's killing me and they need to die. Okay. And then the last thing is ultimate selection. This goes into what Andres was saying about cooldowns, right? This is more playing in the past, but to play in the present with your cooldowns, especially ultimate, in the current play where you have 10% of your ultimates now deduced or reduced from what they were prior to the current meta, or not the current meta, just the current game as a whole. You need to assess, is this a moment where my team can take advantage of this ultimate, regardless if it's planned, right? So you have react, like we say this over and over again in the show. We say this over and over again in Discord, and even over and over again in your matches. I know Andres has been punching through a lot of his teammates in closed door like VOD reviews on why did we use that ultimate there? Like what was the purpose of this ultimate? A lot of times the ultimates now are functioning as complete for even offensively to use them reactively. Like if you are pushing the team, you don't have to use an ultimate to push anymore because they don't come that fast and they're not that common anymore. So a lot of times you can save a Zen ult for readjustment, repositioning when you're coming into a snag in your initial thing. And they are kind of a catch-22 because you can use them to engage, you use them to push, but you also use them to react, and you can also use them to cover weaknesses. So I think that ultimates are becoming more diverse in how you can use them in a team strategy. I've been thinking a lot about this week because of my failures in team play and also my teammates' failures in team play.
Well, that's what I wanted to talk sometimes about. Losing is what teaches you the most. But yeah, that's sure. Very good points. Let's move on into playing in the future, because a lot of what you're saying, it has to do with that, knowing when to use your ults and stuff. I think that playing in the future while you're in the game, trying to predict what is going to happen and how the game is going to go is one of the hardest things to do as a player, especially when you first come into the game. And it's really one of those things that just gets better the more and more you play it. You just need a lot of experience. You need to lose a lot of times. You need to bash your head a lot of times to learn that, those things can definitely happen. The pro players, or the players at the top of the ladder, have gotten really, really good at playing in the future. And when we mean playing in the future, we mean they are able to see the enemy team composition, and immediately, just from looking at the heroes that they can have a pretty good idea of where those heroes can go, and what kind of strategy they're gonna revolve around. Like, for example, if they have a triple tank, which is very, very common nowadays, you can bet that they're going to try to stick together. At least the three tanks are going to try to stick together and keep your supports right behind them, like where you cannot touch them, and just walk in as a death ball of doom, hopefully with like a Lucio speed boost, or even if it's just with Anna and Zen healing them from like way back. They're just gonna move in as a group and try to kill you. So just to keep up with this example, if you are a really good player and you know this already, you also know that tanks tend to be a little bit immobile unless you're like Winston or Diva, but even then you're like a little bit restricted and you're like big framed. So as long as you keep a certain distance, for example, you can basically avoid Roadhog and Reinhardt. And you can outrange him this way. And you know that you will always be at a positional advantage as long as you keep a certain distance from them. Now, this might not always be optimal. Sometimes you might have to shorten the distance, but you know this just by looking at their composition. You know, hey, as long as we keep a range and maybe flank their backline, Reinhardt and Roadhog are gonna be a little bit useless. So it's just like an example of how you can just use information for you to kind of orientate yourself and predict where you have to be inside of the game. To the contrary, though, if, for example, they were playing a super divey comp, where they have like Genji, Winston, maybe throw in a Sombra in there. If you see they have that
Diva,
comp,
Lucio.
yeah, and you maybe are a Zen or a Mercy, you better not be way alone in the back, hoping that your team is gonna stop the front line. Because guess what? There is no front line. They're just gonna jump all over the place. And if you're like way alone in the back, you are like prime target right there. Like, oh, she is exactly where we want her to be. Dive on her. She's down. The enemy team still running towards us. We can just scatter away after this and continue a 5v6. So again, just by like looking at the comp, you can make some predictions of where you should be positioning yourself, and this sort of thing. Let's move on also into when you're playing in the future, you're actively also gauging where your positioning should be and who the person is causing you the most trouble. Like you said, Rob, like your team will usually have some prime targets that you usually want to focus, and as long as the enemy team is playing them right, like this main targets make sense, right? Like you want to take out the Ana, for example. Leaving up an Ana and just focusing on the Reinhardt or on the Diva up front can be very detrimental, because Ana can just throw the grenade on them and do huge burst heals and gain her ultimate really quick. And basically Reinhardt and Diva will never die, as long as Reinhardt and Diva are playing fine too. But if instead you know that they have that Ana and you know that that's gonna be a situation, you prioritize that person, and in the fight, you don't start the fight by jumping on the Ana, but maybe you grab the attention in the front line while your Genji goes in and kills her out, and you start thinking about ways to kind of dissect the enemy team and how you can break down their defenses. Likewise, if the attacking team has a Genji that just keeps getting on your backline and you cannot do anything about it, you might want to start thinking about dynamic solutions to that. Like maybe Genji might not be the most popular hero in this meta, but a good Genji is still like super, super deadly and will tear apart your Mercy and your Zenyatta. So at that point, you might be like, hey, I'm just gonna take a Winston and stick around in the back and
Sit on him.
always drive away the Genji. Like if I see this Genji jump on any of my supports, I'm there and he's not doing anything.
Yep.
And
Winston is the best babysitter because he's not human.
yeah, and even if you weaken a little bit of your front line, you might realize, hey, we actually didn't need that much of a front line, because the only guy that is actually killing us is the Genji, which we were now dealing with. And the rest of the guys we can deal with a little bit easier once this Genji is down and our guys are not dead. So constantly evaluating what the enemy team has and what you can do about it. And it's it's not a thing that you only play in the future, you only play in the present, and you only play in the past, but it's like a dynamic way of thinking that you have to be switching through all of these modes, right? Analyzing what went wrong so that you can change what went right in the future. And also actively in the present, getting all the feedback of information. Like it's so important for you to realize, for example, that if their Reinhardt goes in and chases your Reinhardt, suddenly there's a huge opening, right? Like suddenly they don't have a shield. And if you're like the rest of your team, even though your Reinhardt might be a little busy, maybe you're hoping that Anna can heal him from the back. But now that right there is an opportunity that while you were in the present and you're actively thinking about this, you can capitalize on. And it's like, hey, Reinhardt is gone for a few seconds. If you're Lucio, at this point, a light bulb might go on and you're like, okay, I've been saving my speed boost for this exact moment. Boom. Let's fire it up. All your team rushes in. Reinhardt, their enemy Reinhardt, kind of panics for a second because he realizes that he let the floodgates in and he starts coming back. But then at that point, Reinhardt is like, ooh, he just turned around. I'm just going to go ahead and charge him. And then, I don't know, like, it's like this like active engagement of you have to be super aware of what is happening. And the more aware you can be of all these things that are happening and the more you can capitalize on these small details, the better off you'll be. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. I just wanted to go with maybe a little different than what you were talking. I want to spin it more towards like ultimates prediction, right? Because ultimates have they haven't become more or less powerful, right? They just become more scarce. So when you're playing in the future, like these engagements, this is kind of like more of the ebb and flow that's become more popular because ultimates are more scarce. But at the same time, that means that they are also more valuable because they are ultimate abilities. They do a whole lot for the game. So if your engagement can also be predictive or reactive by virtue of your prediction of what the enemy has and what you have. So it's very easy to predict what you have because you can just hit tab. And then there's a little check mark with a big blue button telling you, hey, this person's got their ulti. Great. You don't have to ask. You don't have to run comms. You just tab. Okay. So it's very easy to predict what your team can do. You can say, okay, looks like Ana has her ult. I'm playing soldier. I have mine. Hey, Ana, as soon as they do anything, if you see an ult popped on the enemy team, nano me, and they are dead. Okay? So that's a very good way to play reactively and yet predictively. The other way to do that is by using your enemies by seeing what they are doing on like if you're on defense, you can see what they are doing in their engagements. So you can react predictively, saying their last engagement, Reinhardt burned his ultimate. So he doesn't have his for a good while. But you also notice that they didn't burn res on their Mercy, which means they have it. So you can do one of two things. You can kill one target and then burn the Mercy down. Or you can burn the Mercy down initially and hope by the time you've killed the rest of the team or by the time you've had them trickle that Mercy's not up again to res them, very close to the point on King's Row, for example. Okay, so there's differing strategies that you can do there, right, Andres? Am I crazy?
No, you're totally right. And okay, let's talk about ultimates because ultimates is really important. And ultimates kind of like require you to have like the whole range of thinking of analyzing what's happened in the past. For example, if the enemy has a Junkrat and that Junkrat has gotten 3 kills on your team, like you can bet that Reinhardt, I mean not Reinhardt, but the Junkrat has his ultimate already because they gain it super fast. You know this because you've been playing the game
coming
for a while. So you know for a fact that the tire's coming based on information that has happened throughout the game. Also, for example, playing the present is the things that we said. Are you getting all the feedback? If you're a Reinhardt, for example, you're looking out for the shield of the enemy Reinhardt to break, and then you know you have a free go. Like nobody can stop you, not even defense matrix, nothing. As soon as that shield goes down, if there's anybody behind the enemy Reinhardt, especially the squishies, they're done, and you can
toast them.
You can toast them right away. playing the
Send me a
present.
postcard. I'm
Yeah.
going in.
Or more importantly, with ultimates, and you really have to think about this, and is when you're thinking about ultimates in the future, is how are you gonna use them, and when is the right
Mm,
situation to use them? Um, and this is so important. And the higher you get in the ladder, the the more obvious this becomes, and the better players get at doing it. Let's say a good example of this is the nanovisor that is so popular right now. Like
mm,
it used to be the Beyblade. You would just ultimate a
mm.
Reaper while he was Beyblading, but now
Yep.
is Nano Boost and the visor from Soldier 76. You just put those two together, and it's an insane combo right now, and it's like the one of the most used DPS combos to just break down the enemy
Especially
team.
with Discord, just rips through stuff.
Yeah, but knowing this though, just because you know this, a lot of people have been playing Zenyatta and saving the Transcendence specifically for this moment. Like you don't use it anywhere
Hmm.
else. And if you're a Zenyatta, for example, you know that Transcendence is super sacred for certain situations. If they have an Ana and Soldier, you know you're saving it for that Nanovisor. If they have like Sarya Hanzo, you know that you're saving it for that Graviton. If they have a Genji, you know that you're saving it for the Blade. Um, so having like this information up front and knowing what your ultimate counters and what your ultimate is good in certain situations, like we said about Reinhardt, you know that the only thing that can stop it is the Reinhardt's shield. And you know that sometimes people get a little bit overconfident behind the Reinhardt shield because they think they're protected.
Hmm.
So you can just literally wait for that right opportunity, ask your team to break the shield when you have the Earth Shatter, and just go ham to the town on the enemy team.
Same
Um,
thing with Matrix if you're playing Pharah, even though that's not meta. Like we were talking about that in Discord today. Like burning down that Matrix, making sure that she has to be forced to use the Matrix throughout your whole rockets, empty a whole clip. You know, the Matrix is down, jump in the sky and blast them. You know, stuff like that.
Yeah, you need to find like the optimal ways to use your ultimates. For example, another popular strategy that is coming to light nowadays is the Diva Reinhardt combo, because
Oh my
it's
word.
so popular to hide behind
Terrifying.
the Reinhardt shield. Basically, the only thing you need to do is you stand in front of Reinhardt as Diva, and you like projectile jet your mech through his shield and detonate it. So basically, the Reinhardt has to turn around to block the mech hold with his
Yeah,
shield.
block the
And
splash.
as soon as he turns around, your Reinhardt just earth shatters
Earth
and
shatters.
knocks him down, and probably like everyone else behind him. And then your Diva ult just explodes on all of them, or at least makes them scatter enough, and their Reinhardt is down. So you broke the front line and you put him all out of position, and now your death ball can come in like nothing had happened.
Yeah, it's
So
crazy.
cool little combos, and also being aware of these combos might allow you to withstand the battle, I guess. Knowing, for example, with
Hmm.
Lucio, when to use your ultimate, your sound barrier too. Like you see that Reaper flank up in the roof, and there's three guys right below him, and you see the glimmer in his eye. You know he's falling, and he's gonna freaking death blossom everyone. That's when you know cute.
You know what's gonna
You
happen.
gotta cue it right away, because you know what's coming in. Um,
Reaper,
and
you can't get that cute.
it's a
You
fine
can't be
line.
that cute.
Yeah.
We know what you're
it,
doing.
it's a very fine line with this ultimates. And like you said, now that ultimates take a much longer time to charge up, you really have to pick the right situations to use them. For example, to put another example, Mayult. Mayult is an ultimate that you used to get it all the time, but now it's quite
Mhm.
rare, even though it's super, super powerful. And especially if you use it at the right situation. If you have Mayult, you can basically your team can kind of like collapse a little bit and allow the enemy team to have to pounce on you. And the second you see them pounce on you, for example, if it's a dive comp or something, and you just throw your May ult down, you basically neuter down their attack right there. And even if
Yeah.
they came in with ultimates, they came in like full force, you're basically telling them, get out of here or die. And if they have to back out,
It's insane.
yeah, if they have to back out, they basically used up all of their cooldowns or all of their abilities, and they have to reset. They probably lost a guy in between, and you stop the entire push because you chose your
Mhm.
ultimate at the right time rather than just to get some kills.
Yeah, it's just 100% denial ultimate. Like, you want to do something? No, you can't. You have to either wait or you're going to be zoned or you're going to die. And it's very powerful on defense, especially on payload, because everyone is central on offense around that one objective. And if you put something down on that objective, Junkrat or May or Pharah, for example, and that ultimate can deny anything because it penetrates shields. The only thing that can eat it is a D.Va matrix. So if you throw it to the ground fast enough and D.Va's not around, then you've effectively denied an area. So at the very worst, you've delayed something that is inevitable. And at the very best, you get the man advantage and you've killed, 2 to 3 people in team fight by throwing something on the ground, which seems awesome because then you could just go chase freely. You basically freed up that area to be like, hey, this is our space. You can't be here. New home base.
For sure. So basically, to wrap it all up, I think that there's like some maturity stages in Overwatch that players go through, and like this is always improving, and I think this will go on for a very long time. I think it's gonna take us as a community a long time before we can even say that we are playing Overwatch to the max or of our ability. Like if, for example, we go on to StarCraft, some of the players in StarCraft are like literally reaching their limits, like their physical limits. They literally cannot move their fingers any faster. And if they were to move to improve any of the speed to move them, it'll just be like milliseconds. You know what I mean? It would be like tiny
They're a
fractions
machine.
of improvement. Like at this point, you might as well just build a robot because like physically a human being cannot do more than that. Or if you go to games like Super Smash, where they've been playing that game for so long, and some of the pros are literally like reaching those limits of like, if I do more, I'm gonna make this controller catch on fire. You know what I mean? Like in Overwatch, we have not gotten anywhere close to that. I think that the level of play still has to increase a lot, and the things that we have to be discovered in this game have a long way to go still. Strategies need to develop a lot, and this game has so much depth is because it's 6 versus 6. So the amount of strategy that you can start coordinating between a team of 6 is gonna become insane eventually. So do not worry about where you are right now in your maturity level as a player, but just know that there's these stages, and playing in the past, playing in the present, and playing in the future have all to do with them. And we're just putting our own words over here. Like you can call it whatever you want, tunnel visioning or predicting or, analyzing. You can also call it those. But basically, I think when you first start as a player, you are playing a lot in the present, right? You don't have a big idea of what all the heroes do. You don't have a lot of experience playing them. You don't know what counters what and why. You don't know how to exploit the most out of your heroes. So you're kind of like playing as it goes and trying to make sense of it all, right? You're just spamming your abilities, hoping to get a kill. There's not much else that is going on. But as you kind of like start developing into the game, you start analyzing some of your mistakes, and you start getting like that sense of thinking about your mistakes and playing in the past a little bit, and like, hey, yeah, I should probably not do this again because I have died every time I've tried doing that. So I'm just gonna stop doing that, and your play starts to get a little more finesse. And eventually, once you have enough experience, you're able to predict certain things, especially with movement. I think that players that start getting really good also at predicting where the enemies are going to go based on the map and the routes that they have available to themselves. So if they see a tracer, for example, flank through a certain route, they might pre-shoot a helix rocket at a window because they know that more than likely that tracer will pop out like 2 or 3 seconds later through there. And if they miss the helix rocket, well, no biggie. They'll get another one in a couple seconds. But there's a huge chance that that tracer will come through there. And guess what? If she did, boom, you just got a helix rocket on her and she's down. And this was all because you've played the game enough, you've traversed the maps enough, you know the distance between certain things. You also know that certain paths only lead to certain other paths. And based on the objective, the team positioning, and how the fight is going, sometimes it's easier than you think, like literally predicting where somebody's gonna go. You're like, that person's gonna move 2 feet to his right, I guarantee it. And you just pre-fire over there and you get it. So I don't know. It's like, does it make sense what I'm talking about? This maturity stages and how a player kind of like naturally progresses through them as they gain more experience and stuff.
Yeah, I definitely think that knowing the routes, knowing what's normal for flankers to be doing, knowing what the main routes are, those come through experience. They come through maturity of just game knowledge, and game knowledge doesn't just come from paper. Like, there's only so much that you can do listening podcasts, watching videos, watching walkthroughs, learning tips, getting coaches. But at the end of the day, game experience comes from playing the game. Like, this is one thing I took from my college level soccer coach that I always try to implement, like, to any kind of like knowledge, like volleyball, teaching, Overwatch, whatever. If you want to do something right before you do something important, so right before we have big games, what do you guys expect practice to be? Some people are like, you need to run like crazy and get ready to, run. Or you need to do specific drills to, get you ready for the specific scenarios that you want to be put in. But my coach was always like, why would we prep for soccer games any other way than just playing the game? So we're going to scrim. You're literally going to scrim for 2 hours, and that's the game. And it's like, I think that's the best way to do it, because you're literally like trying to emulate a game with practice. That's the whole point of practice. You're trying to emulate the game. So just play the game. That's why you get out of a practice session, or you go in to do warm-ups and then you go play. Like, you need to learn the game, so you need to play the game.
It may come to a shock to a lot of people, but yeah, to learn the game, you got to play the game.
It's very strange, but like, you say, hey, I don't have a lot of time to play, I'm going to play here. If that's the only time you have to play, and like, at the end of the day, your rank is still gold and you've played, and your overall number rank is rank 40, you haven't played the game too much. You haven't even hit your first prestige moment. It's not a skill level thing. It's a lack of game experience. So I think that for me, I was kind of coming to this a little bit this week, slowly, I might add, because I was playing in the past. So I think it's time to just play the game and like get to the end of yourself, get to the end of bad teams, bad comps, and just play. And that can be in quick play, guys. That can be in quick play. That can be forcing yourself in a practice mode to play the game less and to practice more. Like, you got to figure out where you need to improve: mechanical ability, simple tracking, game map knowledge. Maybe you just need to spend part of your practice routes of saying, I don't know Eichenwald very well. I need to figure out how to maneuver this choke better, on this character. So just play the game, guys. Like, sounds really simple, but get those games where you're actually gaining experience. There's a reason that they have so much experience per level, because that's emulating about how much experience you're gaining, realistically speaking, in the game as a whole, through game time. So that's my 2 cents, Andres, on mental experience of maturity stages. But the other thing that I would say is, with any game, is your mentality, like we talked about, through tilt, through positivity, and through logic. Like, your brain can play tricks on you. you may not actually be right in your assumptions. Andres and I are doing the Omnic Lab as a scope of scientific prediction and scientific method. We don't actually have the answers. You guys are following us like the Pied Piper. I'm still in gold, guys. Andres is in diamond. We're not perfect players. We're not the pros. We haven't
Well,
arrived.
we're improving as
But we
along
are
with
improving.
everyone.
Exactly.
The last thing I want to like mention about this and like kind of like leave you guys with is what might affect your mental performance. We already talked about maybe different mental stages that you can have playing in the past, playing in the present, playing in the future. And like these eventually come naturally to every player, but just being aware of them and exploiting them every game and doing active thinking. That is the main thing that you have to do. That is what we should have actually called this section. Active thinking during an Overwatch game in the past, the present, and the future. And the enemies of this, and this is playing like this is what gonna make you improve the most when you're playing actively like this. But the enemies of this is things like tunnel vision, for example. Tunnel vision will affect your performance by quite a bit. Just focusing over and over on the same guy, maybe because he got a lucky headshot on you in the beginning and you cannot get over it, and you're like, I'm gonna kill this guy if it's the last thing I do, and just tunnel visioning through it and ignoring kind of everyone else, or tilting at one of your teammates and then starting to focus on your teammate and their playstyle rather than on your playstyle and what is happening and the enemy team. I see this happen a lot. People who get tilted and their attention turns to their team rather than the enemy team and what is happening. And suddenly they're not thinking actively about the game. They're just, thinking negative things about their own team and why they're not winning because their teammates are not pulling their weight. And in reality, they're not pulling their weight either because they're just not paying attention. That is a really, really bad thing to do. So yeah, tunnel visioning and tilting, you don't want any of those. And another one that is really bad is mindless playing, like the opposite of active thinking. When you kind of just go on autopilot, you just pick a hero and you kind of just walk until you see an enemy, and then you start immediately firing at that enemy. And then when you're surprised by McCree coming to your right, then you kind of like react to that, but it's a little late because you already heard and you end up dying, and you kind of like rinse and repeat. You're not really actively thinking on their composition, on their lack of good positioning or exploits that you can have. You're just kind of like going through the motions. That's also a terrible thing to do and something that's not going to help you improve at a steady pace. Well, if you're actively thinking about the game and you're thinking about the things we mentioned in this episode, analyzing your mistakes every fight, making sure you use your cooldowns, also prioritizing the things that are happening in the present, capping or prioritizing on things that you see happen, like the Reinhardt shield broke, or the Reinhardt left the front line, or your Genji was able to kill the Ana, or your soldier is using his nanovisor from a flank. All these things are like dead giveaways that you should take action. And if you're paying attention to them, if you're looking at your kill feed and you're soaking in this information and you can act on it as it happens, it's so important. And then more important than that, if you can kind of predict a little bit of what's going to happen, where some players are going to go based on their strategy, what ultimates might be up based on the events that have happened, and what counters what, and kind of have like that predictive nature. That is, if you're doing this every game, that'll make you improve so much faster. And that's kind of like a little summary of everything that we've just said in like 30 minutes for you.
Yep. I think that was a really great exercise for us mentally for the show. And Andres has been thinking about this for quite a while. Just wasn't quite sure where we wanted to spin it for you. And I really benefited from it as well. And I hope that my rank will be something that adjusts to experience and doesn't become the mere focus of my play. Because getting better is not synonymous with having a high rank or having the ideal rank. right? So
Mhm.
although that may reflect better players in the long run, you can get there. But at the moment, right now, you need to focus on getting better. So thanks so much for listening to the majority of our discussion. I checked through our emails. I replied to all of our emails this week, but none of them are things that people have requested that necessarily pertain for the show. So if you guys want to do those, you can send those to omniclabpodcast@gmail.com. You can send us questions, show topic ideas, suggestions for guests, etc. Also, Andres was going to take a quick second and talk about a very special holiday thing we have planned for you coming up.
Yeah, so if you are a patron of the show, we have a little upcoming opportunity. We posted it on the Patreon page. We also posted it in our Discord. But if you haven't seen any of those, we're having this little special event by the end of the year. If you are currently a patron or you have been a patron in the past months and stuff, you can send in a little recorded message talking about why you like the Omnic Lab or why you like Rob or me, or you can just tell us a little bit about yourself. You can tell us about what you would like to see in the lab. You can also send a message to some of the other Omnics over here if you'd like to reach out to the community. Basically, we're being pretty lenient with the topic. We just want to hear from you and we want to include you in the show. But we want to do a little end of the year special and thank you guys. Especially the ones who've like helped us out grow the show and make it better and better and have been there for a long time. We want to give back a little bit to you guys and make you feel like you're a part of the show too, because you are, and without you guys, we definitely wouldn't have like these awesome mics or all this support, and we maybe, I don't know, maybe we would be doing something else. But you guys have been so awesome for us that it's a pleasure to keep doing this show. And yeah, we want to make you a part of it. So if you're a patron, send in your message, tell us about you, say something funny, make up a song, make up a poem. I don't know, read a script, be creative.
Whatever you want.
Whatever you would like, as long as it's not about government or religion or, blatant self-promotion of something else. Those are probably like the only ones that will be like, oh no, don't drive your political agenda over here. That's not what the show's about. But as long as it's about
keep them short,
cool and community, yeah, just try to keep them between like 2 and 3 minutes. Less than that would be ideal. Especially if we get a lot of submissions, we don't want to make the show like 3 hours. But we're not being stingy with time either. This episode is also for you guys, and hopefully we can do a cool audio collage. So yeah, if you're a patron, go right ahead and send us over. You can send it to the Omnic Lab email, or you can also send it to me like via Discord. I think you can send files through there too, as long as they're small enough. Yep. But you can send it in a Google Drive or Dropbox. I mean, however you want to send it. We're also not being picky with the quality. If you want to record it on your phone because you don't have a headset or a mic, that's totally cool. As long as, you can make out what you can say, we're cool with that.
Yep, just make sure you submit them by Christmas Eve. It's a good way to remember when they're due. And just remember, if you want to hang out with us in the Omnic Lab, we want to hear from you as patrons and mods and admin in our Discord. So send those in before Santa gets here, and you should be safe. We also wanted to take a quick second and promote what our Discord is doing. December 17th, which is tomorrow. No, this is for Saturday. Sorry, Saturday, United States time. I cannot remember for the life of me what the time is. I want to say it's 6 or 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to be pulling it up as I'm explaining. But basically, they're going to do a game night. So custom, Christmas, hangouts, just depending on how many people show up. Depends on what actually ends up happening. They're going to go hang out and do what they need.
I got it right
basically,
here.
It's 6 p.m. Yeah, 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
There's a sign up in the Discord server. That'll be going live probably before you can even listen to this episode for you to go sign up. and Crispy and admin are sponsoring it. So if you guys want to go have any additional questions, you can go hang out in the Discord and ask Mr. Crispy, Mr. Shock, Fat Cake, and Pseudo about what's going on. And they will answer your questions. But I will do my best to make sure that I can make it. No promises. I got a really crazy couple weeks because of last minute Christmas prep. And I think Andres may be in and out as well.
I'll be trying to attend it a little bit later. I do have like work that day, but I will be trying to join the hangout towards the end. I know that the last one that they did was really fun, and a lot of the people in the Discord liked it, and they were asking for another one. We had some people ask today or this week if we were gonna host another little play session. And yeah, this is your chance. December 17th at 6 p.m. Show up that Saturday over in the Discord. We'll organize 6v6 teams. I know that they want to do some creative matches and maybe get a little wild with some crazy cooldowns and stuff. If you guys want, you can also get into a little competitive 6v6. And eventually, if you guys want, you can like separate into teams of 6 or stuff and like hit the ladder and stuff. I don't know. Yep. Everyone who comes usually has like really good time, and our admins are super cool about organizing all that stuff. So thank you guys for doing that, and hope to see you there.
That's it for the show. We also have 0 iTunes reviews this week. This is one of the first times in a long time that we've had 0 iTunes reviews. So if you guys want to support the show, you don't want to do it with cash, you can do it for free. You can listen to the show. You can run over to iTunes.com and you can check out our show and leave us a quick review, and we'll read it out on the show potentially. So please go do that. It helps us with our vision. It helps us get improved in the search rating so more people can find us just on a whim. If they're looking for Overwatch podcasts, they can find us really easily, and hopefully they can even find a good Overwatch podcast as well, because iTunes ratings helps people find not only a podcast but podcasts that are good content. If you guys want to find us in any other way, you can find us over on Twitter and Facebook with the tag Omnic Lab. Our Discord server, if you would like to find it, is through your browser. So go into Chrome or Internet Explorer and type in discord.me/OmnicLab. Again, the email is omniclabpodcast@gmail.com. So if you're sending them to omniclab@gmail.com, it will not get to us. So omniclabpodcast. If you guys want to listen to on Android, you can find us in many Android apps, but there are no promises outside of maybe Overcast or the there's a couple others that are pretty good, like that are free, but we cannot make any promises on those Android apps. So if your issues are there and they are not in iTunes or Google Play Music, then I don't know what to tell you, because we got a couple comments on that this last couple weeks. So I just wanted to clear the air. If you guys want to find us on YouTube, you can find us there as well. You can find this live show recording on our youtube.com/OmnicLab, or you can catch us live on Twitch basically every Tuesday morning. We may have to adjust on Christmas schedule, but I think we're actually pretty solid. We might still make that 27th show happen. And I think that's when we're going to schedule it. And those are on Tuesday mornings around 9 to 10 a.m. And I think that's it from us. Oh, you can find our website over at omniclab.com, and you can find merch there as well. So you can get these spiffy little V-necks if you're watching the live show or the recording. Andres has got another shirt that you can get as well. And we have hoodies for Christmas season, so go run over there and grab those. That's it for the show and where you can find that. What about Andres? Where can they find you, man?
Personally, you can find me on Twitter at iPlayGames to stay caught up with what I'm doing when I stream and, some of the stuff that I like. And you can also catch me streaming on Twitch TV/OmnicLab. I was really happy that last week I was testing out everything else with my stream, and everything's actually looking really good with the new graphics card. So hopefully I'll be streaming some of my team practices a little more often, and I'll just be trying to stream more on the regular. I'll hopefully start doing it on the weekdays starting around 9 to 10 Eastern. So stay out on the lookout for that. And yeah, I got a couple other projects in the works, but I'm not going to mention any of that still until those come into fruition.
Very secret. Very secret. Yeah. And if you guys want to go find me, I'm on Twitter with the tag NotRob, as well on plays.tv if you want to find any of my gameplay. I'm uploading it there more for my benefit than for yours because I'm trying to improve. But if you want to go catch a couple crazy game highlights, I usually post those there at plays.tv/u/notrob. If you guys like Hearthstone, you can head over to your podcasting app of choice and look up Velen's Chosen. We're a podcast that dedicates our show towards your budget and making sure that you can still play the game competitively and potentially reach your Hearthstone goals, not just like we do here on Omnic Lab with your Overwatch goals, but we help your Hearthstone goals if you don't have the money to necessarily complete your card collection. That's it for episode number 32, The Mental Game and Making Decisions Actively. So we hope you guys learned something this week. Don't be a lab rat, be a scientist. We'll see you guys next week, and have a great Overwatch miss. Adios.
I have nothing more to teach